The first thing is, I think we have traveled such a long distance today in our decline that nobody is really surprised that the government is interfering directly, that agencies which should be independent, that agencies which should be looking at issues of justice and relief for those who have suffered, particularly in issues of mass violence. It is here where, as Harsh also raised it, Harshmanda raised it initially, that it's when you come to issues of mass violence that it becomes particularly evident. Although I must say in India, we have no problems there. Even when it comes to individual violence, we accept the same attitude. I think it was anger over this. I still remember sitting in Vithalbhai Patel house in a room which was 8 by 8 in 2002, as phones were coming in. Many of you do not know this, but Teesta had worked for many years with Zakia Jaffrey before the 2002 riots. And she was getting these calls coming in, actually describing to her what was happening to him and how people were being slaughtered at Naroda Patia. And it is there, I think, that the whole journey began. That how long are we simply going to accept this? Is this going to be allowed? Is it going to happen? And are we going to accept it? So I think that's where the journey begins. The other side of the picture, that is the hounding of people who want to make this commitment and want to move forward. The other side of the picture actually began with the Best Bakery case. What happened, as all of us know, but just to remind you, in the Best Bakery case, it was an open and shut case, as everybody said. There were eyewitnesses, there were members of the family, and there was the clear injury and death of a number of people. And then suddenly, witness after witness after witness began to turn hostile. But what happened is, when in the Best Bakery case, witness after witness started to turn hostile, there seemed to be a deja vu. And then Zahira Sheikh approached Teesta in Bombay, and she was brought by none other than Rais Khan Pathan, who later, once there were some problems that over his conduct with some of the victims and so on, and when he was removed later after 2 years, he was the person that the Gujarat government picked upon to use. But this also was 2 years after he left the CJP. Now, Zahira was brought to Bombay, and she informed Teesta that, no sorry, Teesta went to meet her in Gujarat and later came with her to Bombay. She informed Teesta that she had been coerced into changing her statement. So it is Zahira who came to Teesta with this claim, and then after investigating it and finding that the situation seemed to be right, they came to Mumbai, and Zahira's statement was recorded in front of the National Human Rights Commission. It is there that the first obstacle was encountered by the powers that be in Gujarat. They encountered the first obstacle, and they began to identify the lady who may be responsible for it and the organization that could be held responsible for it. With Zahira's case, what happened was that the Supreme Court then decided to move the cases out of Gujarat. It became more difficult. The fight continued, and through legal interventions, I'm going to cut this short, but through legal interventions, not just of Zahira's case, but I think what was a very important issue also taken up at that time, which was witness protection. Over 500 people were given protection so that they could be free to put their testimonies forward. Because when something like this happens in mass violence, testimonies of actual eyewitnesses, actual sufferers, people who have survived, these are the people who can come and give testimony. But if they are terrorized and they are threatened, then it is no longer possible for that to happen. So this was equally important, shifting the cases out of Gujarat and providing witness protection for the first time, again, I think to over almost 600 people, 570 is the figure that was given. Now, the result is an unprecedented 120 convictions. So, the second thing is, why now? Why is it suddenly being accelerated now? I think there's a very clear reason in this. And that is the Zakia Jaffrey case. The Zakia Jaffrey case is not a simple case, it's not just another case in Gujarat. The Zakia Jaffrey case is very clearly a case where Zakia Jaffrey has said that the killings of 2002 were the result of a criminal conspiracy involving the entire administration, and the first person charged with this is the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, and there are 59 others which include officials, members of political parties, members of so-called fringe groups, members of bureaucracy, etc. There's a whole list of people there who are held criminally or administratively culpable. This again is for the first time something has happened in the case of the Zakia Jaffrey case, this administrative culpability. And in this process, we have a case which looks at the issue completely differently. It is saying there was a state government, there was a chief minister, there were officials, and none of them did their job. Now, it's not just that Teesta and Zakia Jaffrey are saying this. Zakia Jaffrey tried very hard to get this case registered in a local court in Gujarat, where it was refused, in the High Court, where again it was refused, and then she brought it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court then said that a special investigation team should look into the events. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole question of the amicus curiae and all that, because that everybody knows. The SIT said there was not enough evidence to charge. The amicus curiae said there is clear evidence to charge all 60 people on 3 counts at least. And but that we needn't go into. What happened was that the SIT filed a closure report. And that closure report, the Zakia Jaffrey had the right to appeal that closure report, and so she did. Now, if you appeal a closure report, then you have to be provided all the documents that were made available to the SIT. I know Aruna is sitting here, she knows what the right to information does. But when you have to be given legally every document that came before this special investigation team, it means that you have, in the public domain, you have a huge amount of evidence. And it is for this reason that for a whole year, Zakia's legal team was not given these documents. And finally, they had to appeal again to the Supreme Court, and in February 2013, they finally got 23,000 pages of evidence in 64 box files. And what was the nature of that evidence? These are not testimonies. What they have is administrative and police records. And in those, I'll just quickly read this out. The SIT report does not deny that post-mortems of the car sevaks killed in Godhra were done in public. That photographs of 59 burnt corpses went viral on the internet. That a meeting was held at the collector's office where the Vishwa Hindu Parishad's Jaideep Patel was allowed to be present in the collector's office. That a decision was taken that the bodies would go to Ahmedabad, and that those bodies were not given to any administrative person, but Jaideep Patel was given, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad man was given the right to take those bodies. Now this is not, there's nothing testimonial about this. This is just clear facts. In the meantime, Sanjeev Bhatt had filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court too, stating that he had been present at the meeting and that 3,000 persons had gathered at the Sola Civil Hospital where the bodies were taken, that the hospital was attacked, that the mob was trying to get hold of the bodies, that the funeral processions were allowed even in that atmosphere, and that Acharya Giriraj Kishore came there and addressed the mob. Now, just think about this thing which I have just read out for you. And then ask yourself, why is Teesta being hounded? Teesta is being hounded so that this information does not come back into the public domain.